Hello everyone, thank you very much for attending our online class. This is going to be like 43rd class that we've been doing free online class that we've been doing like every week, broadcasting from Yamato Manufacturing headquarter, Kagawa, Japan. And I'm again like do this class like from this room, where we shoot videos and because we're doing conducting ramen school this week. So today we're doing like how to start a ramen business from scratch, and we're calling this class like Ramen Business 101. And 101 means there's gonna be like 102, 103, maybe like 104, and then 201 or something like going on and on. So we're gonna be talking about this kind of subject like probably for a while because it's like it's impossible for us to be able to like kind of finish talking about it like in a matter of like 90 minutes or like 60 minutes. We're gonna be doing this again, like if we can like dig deeper and deeper into it. So please stay tuned for next class, this subject. Okay, so let's get started. Basically, like we are a manufacturer of noodle making machines, and we've been in this business like for 45 years. And so we manufacture noodle machines that are kind of like in a small scale, and we design them like compact, they're compact enough to like fit in the like a kitchen of like noodle restaurants, and for small factories and so like so they're small scale and they are designed to produce fresh noodles from scratch. And we've been running noodle school for those people who want to start up their own business, like restaurant businesses, for the past 20 years. 20 years. And so we have a school over here, like in Kagawa. That's a week-long class and teaching everything from like production noodles, like soups, toppings, everything, like how to develop menu items, everything. Then yeah, it's a small class. Every class is small, like up to like 8 people, so that we can have like one-on-one session sort of like so each student has his or her own like ideas for like what kind of ramen they want to make, right? So at the end of the day, like they take home like complete sets of like recipes, for their ramen dishes, right? We teach everything on management as well, like operation, how to operate the noodle restaurant. So that's what we do. Um, okay, so and then we have customers using our machines in over like 60 countries, and we have offices. Well, we have offices like in Tokyo, where we also conduct school, like the one we have in Kagawa, and we have offices in like Osaka and other big cities. And then we have office in Seoul, Korea, Singapore, Netherlands, United States. We also have like partners like distributor partners in different countries. So yeah, that's why we have a lot of customers using our machines in different countries in the world. So we're basically a group of noodle making experts, right? And if we help our customers succeed in the businesses, and like by providing a training, noodle recipes, or whatever they need to succeed in their businesses, the spurb noodles. So ramen business 101. So I thought about like what we're gonna talk about in this like the very first class of this subject. And although we did like a class on like Ramen 101 like last time, a few weeks ago, that was kind of focused on like kind of technical side of things and like ramen in general. So in this class, like I'm just gonna talk about like like kind of focusing on kind of business side of thing, right? So to start ramen business. Um, yeah, like creating any business, right, with a high rate of success is always difficult, right? Because it's like shooting in the dark, right? Like if no, we don't do like all the homework, preparations and everything, right? Um, so even though like ramen being like very popular business to start, pretty much anywhere in the world, but to succeed, right? That means, you start and stay in this business, right? That's sustainable and profitable for as long as we can get at least, right, expected return for our investment, right? So we need to do certain preparations. And, having taught over like, over 1,000 students, right, with different backgrounds and goals at our ramen school, I think we are well positioned and qualified to talk about this subject, this particular subject. So, what's essential in starting a successful ramen business, right? And then, like from the nature of the business, like to equipment, right? You may need for your ramen restaurant. We'll talk about like what's really necessary to start a ramen business as much as we can in this class, or like the next one, or like continuing classes of this on this subject. So, to start ramen business, right? And business concept and building business plan, like so, like in any business, to start any business, like you have to build a business plan. So, like you need to understand, like that your target markets, like offerings, what to offer for these people, and pricing, right? And then, like place, even place, right? And then sales projection, so that like you can probably have like like solid business plan to present it to like probably a group of investors to get funding, right? And then taking the initial investment, right? So like you have to um, develop product, right? For the net, you had to have like systems and location, maybe possibly the equipment, and then you need to have like people to operate this business, right? And you need to build operations, right? Operations meaning so production, procurement like getting like locally sourced ingredients and stuff, and service, right? Service and daily communications with your customers, like suppliers, employees, and SOPs. SOPs like zero, really critical standard operating procedures, and we're going to talk about like kind of micro noodle factory concept with ramen business. And we're going to finish this class like with the question answers. Um, so please send your questions in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to answer as much as you can, as much as I can. Okay, so ramen business 101. So we have to have definitely have to have like business plan, and then we're gonna go into like initial investment, actually while deciding to start the business, right? And we're gonna build operation from there. And so, but like having faced, severe situations for restaurants and dining businesses, right? Ramen shops and businesses are no different, right? No matter how popular they are. So we need to think about ramen business during and after COVID. And so that means I think the balance between like dining in business and takeaway, delivery, wholesale, and then retail, like meal kits businesses are crucial for those like for starting up a ramen business from now. So because we don't know, right, when the situation will improve and get bad again, so we should have a flexibility for us to swing between these businesses to build a ramen business with some degrees of flexibility to pivot, right, between dining in, takeaway, delivery, and retail businesses. I think there are certain things we need to develop for us to stay strong in these businesses. So first of all, we need to have like strong products. Should consist of noodles, soups, sauces, and toppings, side dishes, beverages, sweet, maybe possibly sweets and other things, other items that our target market, want, right? We develop these products based on what our target market desire, right? So um, we need to have like deep understandings of like our target markets when developing our products, right? They may extend to like types of ramen, taste of flavor, and serving size, and even like pricing, right? So who will be our target market? And and then naturally, like we have to think about like particular part of like markets with a unique set of demographics, daily habits, and the characteristics that matter to our business. And deciding who we will be serving, right, first, very important, right? Because we are going to be designing products, packaging, even packaging, pricing, and other aspects of business based on these people. So we need to know like what they care about, what they regularly eat, and if they're single, married, how many kids they have, right, where they live, where they shop for groceries or whatever we can find out about them, like that matter to our business, right? And these information help us shape what we offer and then how we offer them in our business. And of course, like we have to like think about also like competition, who our competitors be and what we are competing against, right? So they may be like some like mass produced like noodle, or like other products like food products sold at supermarkets, or like even like what's offered at McDonald's or like on the corner of a neighborhood, right? So in the eyes of local markets, what do they perceive as like alternative offering we have in mind at this point, right? And where they are sold, um, how customers consume them, and what are the pricing points, right? What kind of packaging they use? Can make it like top 10 list of like the most popular items that they offer? And answering these questions like kind of should like present like at least parts of like our markets in the current reality. And all this information like should help us like shape offerings into like kind of manifest our offerings into like reality, right? And then to compete, to have like kind of competing products or like that transcend like competition, right? So that competition maybe like from other regions, the local markets are like not big enough to justify the feasibility of this our business. So in this case, like we need to like expand the scope of our research. But like there are many other things like we may want to know before moving forward. But like taking out the potential competition, like which means what choices our customers have, right? So we want to like what we need to know before starting the business. So based on like what we found from the research, like we should have a better idea of like of how we should structure our like the products, pricing, like even like a place, right, location, or like whether or not like how well how much of like a business should be like concentrated on like dining in like other types of mode of business, but modes of business, because we want to be different, right, in the eyes of like our customers from the competition. Like we should structure our products, pricing, and labeling and aspects of like with like what we obtain from the research. Okay, so market research is something that we have to do like first, right? And then that's gonna um, and then like well basically to understand like our target markets, and that should shape the offerings. Offerings means like product, right? Products and the services, like whether or not like how much of the service like we're gonna provide, like and how much of dining in business like we're gonna do, and what kind of pricing we have to set, right? We have and even place, right? Like depending on like where and our target markets are, like in terms of like our neighborhood, the place may be important, right? And then like even like business hours, like what business hours we should have, like then like um, and the sales projections, then like how much we'd be like earning, making the revenues, then that should kind of help compose our like kind of business plan, solid business plan that we can submit to like a group of investors to get funding that we need, right, to start this business. So we know, based on like what we have like in a business plan, like we know like how much funding we need, because we need to like spend on what kind of equipment that we need, right? And then like we have to like secure location, and we have to have like certain systems. Systems means like payment system, like website, right? And then like peer platforms, uh, like basically like online platforms. And we need to like train people, like we need to hire and train people, like certain number of people, and I think kind of people like we want like for operation, right? And we need to have, of course, like operational funding, right? We need to have like at least like 6 months to maybe like in a year of like operational cost, right? Operational expenses that are like set aside as an initial investment. So the funding part, and once we decide like how much we need, right? How much it takes to like get started on this business, we can you know we'll decide whether or not like to start this business. And so that should be based on like all these market research, like the preparation part, which is like critical. Um, that like we do, yeah. There's no like limit to like how much of the market research like we have to do, but like we should do, we should get like as much information as possible at this stage. And um, And then of course, like, once we decide to, start doing this business, right? And then like, so we take the initial investment. And then I guess at the same time, like we should start building operations and all the operations, right? Like production, procurement, meaning like, where we get like supplies of ingredients, right? Like in terms of like quality, in terms of quantity, and then services, right? Dining in, like how much of dining in like business like we're gonna do, and how much takeaway, how much delivery. Of course, it's just gonna be like a projections, like estimations of like how much like the business, like each part of like type of business like we're gonna do. But we should have like certain like at least like rough estimations, right? First, because otherwise like we cannot decide on like kind of production capacity, and then like place, right, and then like kind of equipment that we need. So we have to have that first, right? We have to like have the estimation first. Of course, like it misses the actual numbers like in reality, but like at least we should have certain um, estimations based on the research that we did. It's like that's why doing the research is that it's critical first, right? And so these things like these operational um, operations, like production and everything, like methods, and everything, right, should be based on this standard operating procedures. So why we need to have like some solid standard operating procedures is that like all aspects of operations like should be based on that, and such like production noodles, like soups, sauces, toppings, and various parts of like side dishes, right? And highly solid SOPs like allows to like have to operate like production, distribution, and services like flawlessly without like extensive training and with consistency in quality. So these SOPs serve as like operating systems for our like ramen business, right? Like from procurement, like production, even like logistics, right? And then to services, and even to like communication, how to communicate with the customers on the like web platforms. Because each component of ramen products can be produced and managed like kind of individually for the quality and kind of like put together, right, to turn into an offering. So it's relatively simple and easy to like manage operations of ramen restaurant if we systemize them. And because production or service can be separated and controlled like individual, like we can manage production of each component that's prepared in advance and assemble them to form a variety of offerings to cater to varying needs of our customers. So if we are to do some dining business at a physical location, so this place functions like an assembly factory, right, where each component of ramen dish is put together and is served upon order. So like this system gives us like flexibility to balance our business between like dining in, like takeaway, delivery, retail, and other things, other types of business. Like in production, works as a like factory, right? It's almost like a factory to produce all the components, noodles, soup, sauces, toppings, etc. So all sort of like segmented into individual servings, and that are needed for each type of business. And so we promote each type of like our businesses like on our online platforms and process orders. And because of the changing situation, the behaviors of our customers, right? The demand for each of our businesses probably changes over time. But if our production can respond to like these changes in a way that like our offerings are like kind of based on like predetermined sets of like components. So like so few to like several types like noodles, soups, sauces like toppings, condiments, etc. Right? So they we can flexibly respond to these changes. So for ramen business to like survive through these COVID periods, right? We Yeah, so like I think the flexibility is key, and even if the demands of for like dining in business like drops, like we can do better on takeaway, delivery, and retail businesses to cover for the drop. So if our dining business like picks up right again, and we should have like ample capacity to add like some, for example, like seating spaces, which would otherwise be like used for like different purposes in the downtime. And so the core driver, like key of like ramen business to having the flexibility in surviving or like even thriving, right, through COVID periods is to have like solid production system that's capable of like producing all the components with great consistency and quality, as well as capabilities to adjust and develop, right, to changing market demands. So how can we have these capabilities to produce the product components with consistency and quality and adjust existing products and or like develop new ones? Right? And in terms of having like consistent production, we need to control certain variables that affect the quality of components that come out of production. And as you may be aware, like soup sauce production may deal with a lot of these variables. So I start with this one first. But so I'm gonna just kind of like explaining, yeah, like a kind of production, like soup, ramen soup, like sauces, kind of like in kind of principles, and it's gonna be a bit long, but like I covered this one like in a previous class, like Ramen 101, but like, um, so for those of you like who have watched it, like, like it's gonna be like kind of review, but like I'm gonna talk about them. So like. Um, so menu recipes, right? So once we have like all the products in the way that like it's menu items, um, then like menu items, then we have to have like recipes, right? Recipes, they're part of like stand SOPs, right? And so once we have like recipes, menus, that well, from there, right, we can decide on like what kind of equipment we need to produce all these items, all these recipes, right? And we can decide on like what kind of service like operations we have to have, and then that means like dining, how much of dining in business, like how much takeaway business, delivery business, even like retail, right? Whole meal kits business we have to have, and as part of our job or like service, right? So we help our customers like draw kind of like floor plan for their business, and so this is it's a kind of old kind of traditional ramen setup, right? And it's only have like 9 seats, right? And then like this is like one of those like small ramen shops that like you may encounter, like you may come across like in Tokyo, somewhere like Tokyo, that you may see like maybe like 20 people like lined up, right? And then it's very small, like narrow spaces, like even like customer seating space, it's very narrow. Yeah, you have to like kind of pass through like some customer like sitting at the counter seats to get to the bathroom, right? This floor plan, but you've got like everything, right? You do everything within this shop. So you produce, you make like stock, base stock, like in this setup, right? Within this space, you have like two. stockpile range that allows us to make base stocks from scratch. And you have a noodle machine in the corner, that allows us to make fresh noodles from scratch, right? And then you have like noodle cooker, and you have a cold table. Then you have sink, and you have water softener, which is like really important, which I'm gonna talk more about like later. But so you have everything, like you do everything like within this small, very small space. And so this is a typical setup, like, but like it's not going to be viable. I guess like for those like who are starting up like ramen business overseas from now. And there is like bigger setup, right? Bigger setup, and they're like a space like dedicated for like seating, right? And because like these seating spaces like are like kind of flexible, we can take out like some of the seatings and like kind of convert them into like some like of the production space as well, and or like maybe like some retail space or like pickup space, and like another example like kind of similar, but like it has like kind of counter seats, which would be like difficult, which may be like difficult like um, from for the like kind of situation with the COVID. So this kind of setup, this kind of flow plan may be like difficult, right, for like all these during these COVID periods. But like, yeah, the point I want to make is that like we can help you guys draw this flow plan that can survive, that can thrive even during these COVID periods. So if you have, certain location that you're kind of thinking of like starting some business at, and interested in working with us, like feel free to let us know. So we talked about like evolution of ramen, right? Like like ramen 101 class, and so ramen like ramen's been like changing, like evolving. Of course, like we have like standard ramen, like and ramen soup noodles. So we have like noodles and like a lot like good amount of like soup, right? And that's the standard, right? But like we also have like tsukemen noodles, like that's it's very popular in Japan, and then like we even have ramen shop that specializes in serving this type of ramen dishes, tsukemen specialty shops, right? So we have like like noodles, like big, well, good amount of noodles, and we have like a separate bowl that's like really thick sauce, like even and more. This is soup, but like it's a dipping soup. That's they're high in like concentration, like kind of seasoning, and we also have like mazemen. So we have like cooked noodles, and in there like we have like some kind of sauce that's kind of mixed together, right? And so it's almost like noodles with no soup, but like with some sauce over it. And then it's well, in terms of I guess like cost, like food cost. I think that mazemen is probably the least costly product that we can offer, but like, well, I guess like the level of satisfaction that like customers get like is I guess like, well, it's very similar, right, to like if like they get like kind of soup, ramen soup noodle type like of dishes, but it's like how like ramen evolved, and then like the point I want to make here is that like, well, mazemen and tsukemen, even though like they have less soup than the regular type of ramen noodles, they're considered well, types of ramen, and they're very popular in Japan and the other parts of the world. Yeah, so we can uh, think about them as part of our products, part of menu items. And so yeah, so like in our ramen school, as I said, right, like so we get like all, I mean we get like people like students all over Japan, like from like different parts of the world, and they have different ideas for kind of ramen they want to make, and basically it's the kind of ramen like we can make is actually infinite. I mean, well, it's like it's limitless. I mean, kind of ramen like we can make like like you can make any kind of ramen. So like um, it's even though it's like pure ramen, right? Like it's well, kind of ingredients we use, like and the kind of like even salt we use, and the kind of they like toppings and the kind of like ingredients we use to make the base stock and the tare and like so there are many variables, like many variations, and so it's like infinite, and but I think what's important is that like we should be serving ramen that our target markets want, right, to prefer, right? So but it's you know you could have like any kind of ramen, like so imagination is the limit. Your imagination is the limit. So ramen dish. So basically, it consists of like three things: ramen soup, like or sauce, and noodles and toppings. And ramen soup like consists of like three things, three components. So you have like base stock, like which is the most important part. That serves as like sort of foundation of the ramen soup. So you have to have quality base stock, that have a quality base stock. And we have something called like motodare and tare and then our base sauce that serves as a seasoning. So that basically like determines the taste, right? Taste of the broth, taste of the soup. And like people talk about like shoyu ramen, like shio ramen, and miso ramen. Like these are the actually motodare, right? I mean shio like salt or like shoyu soy sauce miso. These are the seasoning, tare, and komyu or like flavored oil, and that's kind of something unique, like for ramen soup, and that basically adds the flavor, like smell, like aroma to the soup, and you'll be surprised like how dramatically it changes the whole taste of like whole flavor of the ramen soup. And so like komyu is like also like flavored oils, like also very important. And we have noodles, and noodles made of wheat flour, like other grains, or like if you're making like gluten free, and maybe like rice flour, like some other maybe like buckwheat. But if you do like gluten free noodle like with the buckwheat, that'd be like soba noodle. But anyway, like water, right, and constantly. And toppings, we could have like protein toppings, like kind of fiber, like vegetables, the toppings. So basically, these are the three components we have to have, like for ramen dish. I mean, noodle dish, right? And and then, so this is operation kind of a ramen shop, right? And then, so this goes for any kind of ramen business, like we may be doing, and then. So what I want to emphasize here is that like, you can basically like produce each component like individually, kind of separately, and as a part, right, for your bulk ramen. And so there's a like soup production section where we produce like base stocks, tare, flavor oil, separately, right? Separately. So like as a component, okay, as a component, and then noodle production. So we may produce like noodle A, noodle B, right? And they're all like refrigerated, and like they're good for like 1 to 2 weeks, right? So we can stock them. We can have them in stock. And there's another section where they produce like all these toppings. Well, popular ones are like kind of chashu, like kind of sliced meat of like maybe like pork or like chicken or like some kind of protein, maybe like some beef, like and flavored eggs, right? It's one of the most popular like toppings, flavored eggs, and of course like like other types of vegetables like well, of course, for vegan, we could have like kind of like chashu, probably made out of well, some no meat, plant-based ingredients. And side dish, like of course, like popular ones would be like dumplings, and we can make them vegan. We can make them yeah, they're gluten-free too. So it's so what I want to emphasize here is that like so each there's gonna be like each station. I mean, different station like producing like different parts, different components that can be put together, right, to make an offer to make an offer that's well that kind of like responds to that kind of responds to order, right? Order from customer. So you just at an outlet, maybe like if you have like dining in uh, operation, you have an outlet, right? You have a place where customers come in, they'll eat. So you can put together the soup, right? The base stock, tare, flavored oil, and what's great about them is that like you can control the quantity of each component, and you can well, yeah, and then like you can put them together, right? So, and then you may be able to like reduce the waste, and you can schedule the production as well. So it's yeah, so like operating in this way, like it's very good. Like it's kind of like it's kind of sounds or like looks bit far from the kind of restaurant business, but like it's I think it's efficient this way to operate kind of food business. So because as I said, like like production soup is like most um, tedious, like complicated, and then like have a lot of variables like we have to control to well maintain like to have like consistent quality. I'm going to talk about soup, right? And Surami soup consists of these components, and so base stock. So usually one serving is like about around like 300 grams. And by the way, like we go by weight. Every time like we go by weight. Like we don't go by volume. Like we don't say like 300 300 cc or like other like you need to measure it. Like we go by weight because it's accurate. And so 300 grams, right? So like it could be like some kind of animal type soup, which could be like pork, pork back bones, like kind of thick, light version, like in chicken, whole chicken, or like maybe like in beef. Maybe like some of the customers actually will do well lamb, right? Beef stock like that's made of like lamb or like some other meat, some other like animal type ingredients. And of course, like we have like seafood, could be like some kind of like fish, kelp, yeah, some kind of like clams, yeah, like any kind of seafood that we can make stock out of them. The vegetables and like onions, yeah, like potatoes, like cabbage, yeah, like so there are a lot of like ramen shops actually that specialize in serving the soup that's purely made of vegetables, and they are very very good. So uh, yeah, we could think about like just making like well soup like that's out of like vegetables only, and other things like fruits, apple, like some like pineapple we use. So yeah, we can actually make like base stock like for ramen soup out of fruits as well. And tare, right, in the base sauces, like that's like 3 to 15% of the base stock, like in terms of weight. And so this way we have like three seasonings. This they're based on like soy sauce, salt, and miso. And so all these things, we may have like um, we actually have like we say that like, oh, this is like shoyu ramen, and then like it doesn't mean that like tare, right? Motodare is like just consists of like just only soy sauce based tare. But like there may be like some or some like portion of like salt, shio tare in it, but like we still call it shoyu tare. So we basically blend like different tare, right? Different types of like tare to have like kind of like complexity in the taste and flavor. And but like miso, like when we use a miso, like miso, like kind of like well, we use it like as just one as one like tare. And the oil, komyu or like flavored oils, and then there could be like animal types, like the ingredients that we use, like they're like animal type. And for example, like a garlic, dry shrimp, like fish powder, like leeks, ginger, scalp, like other things. And types of oil, like we use, like a lard, like pork fat, chicken oil, pork back fat. So we are basically making oils, infusing, these ingredients like garlic, for example, garlic, right? Garlic, like kind of cooking garlic, right? To infuse the flavors with garlic into the oil to make these like flavored oil. And flavored oil, like plant types, like we use like vegetable oil and then sesame oil, and kind of ingredients we use. Sorry, there are some mistakes, but like basically like all these like plant-based yeah ingredients we use for to make oils. So these images are like taken from like our ramen school, and these guys like on the left are actually making base stocks, and so these are like so we have like all these like pots, like stock pots, and each of these pots like cooking different ingredients, and yeah, and then like so the students can taste like how each ingredients taste, right? Then so that like and then understanding the taste, and then like they put them together, so like they can blend them together like different ratios. For example, like 100 grams of like we say that like to one serving of base stock is like 300 grams, right? So like we can do like 100 grams of like um, pork backbone, like kind of thick tonkotsu stock, and 200 grams of, you know, the seafood broth, right? Kind of like this one on the image on the right hand side, like this is a seafood stock that we make, like, and there's a kelp in there, there's a, like sardine, like dry sardine in there. So kind of blending them like at different ratios to make, different base stocks. And yeah, so like there are like, so all these like animal type stock ingredients that we use, like pork back bones, and like, that when like, we can emulsify it, like, and then, we can make like kind of very cloudy white stock with it. And, we have like, chicken carcass and whole chicken, and then, yeah, it's like pork thighs like that tends to kind of make the yeah soup cloudy. And I'm sorry, like next slide, like to show like some kind of gruesome pictures. So for those of you like who don't wanna see them, please look away. But like we have like pork head and pork feet, right? And then chicken feet. We use them like for different purposes, different purposes. Like so, each ingredient plays different role in kind of constructing the taste and the flavor. So we have to, well, my point is that like, we have to understand, why we are using these ingredients, and then, what kind of quality we are looking for when we are procuring, all these ingredients locally. So yeah, so that's what we have to understand. And then, I kind of talked about it like on the Ramen 101 class, but like, so when we are making like base stock, like, and there's a optimal cooking ratio, well, like in terms of weight, right? So first we weigh like ingredients, right? And then we, for example, like we have like 30 kilograms of pork backbone. Then, we measure the water, like 60 kilograms, and so we start cooking, right? And then this is important because we need to have like certain amount of water, like twice as much of the water to the ingredient to, well, cook these ingredients, right? Most efficiently. So like what we're doing, right? This production-based stocks is that like, we are, what we're doing, like we are trying to like extract, right, essences of all these ingredients most efficiently into the soup, like in the water. So, this ratio of like, so having like twice as much of the water to the ingredient weight allows us to like cook these ingredients, like, so extract essences from these ingredients most efficiently. So that's why we have this ratio, like optimal water to ingredient cooking ratio, 2 to 1. And yeah, and then another thing is that like, we have to cook them from uh, temperature, room temperature water. We never pre-boil them, pre-boil the ingredients, because that way, like, the outer surface of the ingredients like kind of solidifies, and well, we're kind of like losing the the essences in the pre-boiling stage too. So it's gonna take a longer time to get all the essences. And I think the reason, people pre-boil the ingredients is that like, and they want to get rid of the bad, so like bad flavor uh, from the ingredients, right? Especially when we're cooking like kind of animal type stock, animal type ingredients, pork bones and stuff. And then, you know, we when we drink the base stock, right, we smell this like kind of animal smell, right? Animal smell, kind of like yeah, it's like kind of like an unpleasant smell, right? Unpleasant flavor, and but that comes from the almost like no, most of them come from like blood, right? Blood, and but like, we get rid of all these um, blood when we do the the process, like we call like skimming scums, like, removal of scum removable, and we have to like cook them at a high heat for all these scum to come out, right? And then if you take these all these scums like, thoroughly, then, smell is gone. Like, so like we can get like, all the pure essences, just only the pure essences like of the ingredients into the water, right? So, and then with no smell, like with no like unpleasant smell. So that's important. That's important for us to start cooking the fresh ingredients from the room temperature water. That's what's important here. So we can cook the ingredients inside out, not outside it. And another thing is that like, so basically there are two versions, two or like, more variations of like, for example, like same type of stock. So if you're cooking like, pork, tonkotsu stock, right? And then like, there's like light version, like a thick version, right? And there are ways like to cook them. So like they are cooked like differently. And I kind of talked about them like in previous class in the ramen 101 class. So like for those of you like were interested in like knowing more about it, please check it on our YouTube channel. So kind of going into the importance of like using um, sorry. We're sorry. Like there's some like a poor connection over here. Like and then like there was a loss of communication. Like maybe like for a minute or so. What I was saying is that like what like importance of like salt water when cooking the base stocks, in production base stocks. And yeah, so I also like talked about this like in the previous class in the Ramen 101 class. So if you are interested in like please check our YouTube channel. But use of salt water like in production like base stocks like makes world of difference because well it's in terms of like um, the cost of ingredients and in terms like the well utility fees, how much like money you have to put in like utility fees and like probably labor cost. And what if like you get like well 100 liters of like tonkotsu stock, right? And then in order to get them like you well if you're using like salt water, right? Then you can probably get them like by using like 50 kilograms of like pork bones and in like let's say like 8 hours, right? But like if you're using hard water, maybe you're spending like maybe for like I don't know 14 hours and like maybe 20 kilograms more like pork bones, right? And then if you do that like just for one day, that may be fine. But like if you do that like for 1 month, and if you do that like for a year, right? How much more money like you had to put in, right? So water softener, of course, like you have to like first like take your local water that you're gonna use for your production-based stock, but like um, use of like salt water is no brainer. If you have to like work with hard water, so it's just yeah, just no brainer if the water is hard. And tare, so basically tare, like in ramen class, we make like actually 40 to like 50 different types of tare in every class, like from scratch. And again, like what we are doing here is that like you are just infusing flavors of like all these different ingredients into liquid, right? So like it may be like soy sauce, liquid maybe salt water, salted water, or like liquid maybe well it's not really liquid, but like the miso paste. That these are the tare, and then like so but like for for example like shoyu tare, like soy sauce tare, there are like two versions. It's like ones that were cooked, like heated, applied some heat to get the flavors of like ingredients out. Or like ones that are not cooked and they're just like left out, right? Left out like for like 2 weeks to get the juice out of these ingredients. And the difference is that like so all these like uncooked soy sauce like tare like have like stronger and like stronger flavor of like soy sauce. So ramen shops like kind of use them like kind of differently for different types of the ramen soup and flavored oil. And flavored oil, basically the kind of same thing, same principle. And then, so basically, like what we're doing is that we are infusing the flavors of these ingredients into these oils. And there are different types of oils we use, but like we should use the ones that like do not overpower the flavors of these ingredients. So any kind of like oil that has like kind of strong, kind of unique flavor, like smell to them, like we shouldn't choose them as like oils for flavored oil. And yeah, and then like So tare, like clear oil, and then like we cook the stock and then like add it to them, right? And so like that makes the ramen soup. And then after that we cook the noodles and then we add it to the soup and then it's ready for plating. And yeah, and then like ramen toppings. There could be like many different like ramen toppings, like depending on like what your customers want and what's available locally. Yeah, so it's yeah, there are many. There could be many types. And right, and then like it comes to the noodle part and the production noodles, like we've been talking about them like a lot in the previous class, so I don't go into the details, but like this is like what we are suggesting, like for the ramen business with the, I mean, is it like is that like we should have like some kind of like well we should like make like a factory and the noodle production noodle should be like part of factory as well. So I kind of why I talked about these like in previous class on the micro noodle factory business. So please check these in the previous class on YouTube channel. And but so like so we get an order, right? And then like we offer them like kind of like what kind of type of like ramen dish that they want to have, right? And then that in these options we can have like gluten noodles and the gluten-free noodles, right? And that sort of choice affects the final noodle texture, right? And the final noodle texture kind of determines the ingredients. Ingredients meaning like kind of they're if they're like we gluten noodles and like then that means like protein and the hydration ratio of the noodles and maybe go into production and then we can have like another variable like that's like serving size and a noodle size and shape, right? And then that completes the production part and then the packing, right? Packing will be like really important too, like when it comes like kind of micro noodle factory business that we envision from now. And so meal kit, right? Retail, so we can manufacture meal kit product, in-house by having this packing machine, right? So it's like we can individually pack, each portion of noodles, neatly, and we can put the noodle as part of the meal kit package. And so basically ramen noodles, so noodle size, right? And like and then ingredients like solid ingredients, liquid ingredients, and noodle size like thin, thick. We can make them flat. And again, like I kind of talked about like how we construct these noodle recipes, right? And so like you can check our previous class like in this explaining this slide. But basically like there are variables that we can control and wheat or protein content like viscosity, hydration, noodle size, thickness, width, and serving style. And so all these variables like kind of determine the deliciousness and the texture of noodles, right? And so the cutter, right? Cutter, so there are different sizes that we can control. We can control the noodle size for different types of ramen. And so I think having talked with like a lot of customers like around the world, I think the most popular type of ramen that's out there like in the world, like around the world is like I think like Hakata style. Hakata is the name of a city in Kyushu Island where famous ramen shops like Ichiran, like Ippudo are from, originated from. And so Hakata style, like tonkotsu noodles, like they're typically thin noodles, thin and hard noodles. And so the size is typically, like very thin. So like 1.0 millimeter to maybe like as thick as 1.3 millimeter. And well, if there are some standard sized ramen noodles, um, these are like between maybe like 1.4 and 1.7 millimeter width. And with like miso ramen, like I ate ramen noodles, like we did like in previous classes. They're maybe like 1.9, 2.2 millimeter width. And Tsukemen, Mazemen, what we also did like class previously. These ramen and flat noodles, right? Flat noodles. So 2.5 to like maybe as thick as 5.0. 5.0, like it's almost like udon noodles, but so we can control sizes, noodle size, width and thickness, and then that affects the final noodle texture. So yeah, so this is kind of what I had for the lecture part, and then as I said, it's like this topic is like pretty vast, and then we have like all the information and like know-hows and everything, like expertise, for yeah, people who want to start up like their like ramen businesses, like ramen shops, because we've been running like ramen schools like for past 20 years and like teaching, everything, right? But it's yeah, it's kind of like hard to cover everything like in this format, like in this like 60-minute, 90-minute class. So we're going to be doing more classes on this subject. So please stay tuned. And then and before we go, like let's show you guys the noodle making part. And as my colleague Megumi like prepare like some noodles. Actually, we did demo, right? We did a like demo like on the machine, like for customers, like kind of thinking of like starting up their own like noodle production in Indonesia like 2 hours ago, and so she made some noodles and like some even like gyoza skins um, in the process, and but like yeah, so like just to show you guys, like we made some noodles, and yeah. So, so this is maybe like kind of wholesale kind of sale. Like, you have like this kind of cardboard box, right? And then like, you can lay like kind of like water absorbing like paper on the bottom and then like on the top as well. And then like, just lay all these like noodles, right? Like fresh noodles. And yeah, and then you can just ship it out to, well, your like neighboring like restaurants that use these kind of noodles. Um, yeah, so just to show you guys, and then so the yeah, so this is a very basic um, ramen noodles. That's 34% ramen noodles, and it's like with ramen flour. And again, like protein, ash, the viscosity value, like, we can have kind of like flour that matches the kind of like noodles that we want to make, right? And this is the solid ingredients, and then these are the liquid ingredients. So like liquid ingredients, we have like currency, salt, water. The water, like that's 32% to the weight of the flour, and then this is 1% to the weight of flour, 1% weight of, so that's 34% hydration ratio. So this machine, like I think, like you maybe like familiar by now, but like it's called Richmond One machine, Richmond One machine. So it's an all-in-one machine that produces up to 100 servings of fresh noodles from scratch. Yeah, so first we're gonna add this solution with like salt in it and you know the calcium in it, the 34% uh, hydration ratio, water, and this is kind of typical of um, kind of standard. There's some like such thing as standard like ramen noodles, but like um, kind of medium-sized ramen noodles, like they're really suitable for well, actually any kind of soup, actually any kind of soup. Like you can like go with that like shoyu ramen, like you can go with shio ramen, right? And you can go with like yeah, basically like any kind of soup. But like typically like I see they're like coupled with yeah, shoyu soy sauce like kind of soup. And yeah, so and then she prepared the dough in advance, and yeah, it's you can see that the dough is like 34% dough is like this, like it's not too big, not too small. It's like yeah, it's kind of like good, kind of like well hydrated dough, and then so she had this dough like in a plastic bag, right? And then that's how you how we sort of like age the dough, like how we rest the dough, and um, that helps the condition the dough in a way that like it makes the noodle texture good. So what she's doing now is that like she's feeding the dough into the set of rollers, some rollers, and then like that's well set to a certain roller gap, and uh, current roller gap is like 1.5 millimeter, and so we can control the roller gap depending on the different hydration ratio. So basically, the higher the hydration ratio, the bigger the those size. So we need to set the roller gap like kind of wider to accommodate the size of the dough. And so you know but like for this type of dough, like medium hydration ratio dough, the the dough size is not that big. So like the initial roller gap that we start is just 1.5 millimeter. It's not too um, narrow, not too wide. Yeah, so like so she just keeps feeding the dough, right? And like to make like rough sheet of dough, right? First. And then what's good thing about like this machine is that like you can do small batches. Like you can do like in small batches, and the smallest batch that you can do like in terms of mixing capacity, right? That's like 4 kilograms of like solid ingredients. And in 4 kilograms of solid ingredients, like you're adding like 34% hydration ratio, right? 34% hydration ratio. Um, yeah, it's a bit difficult like calculation that for your like just a head to do, but like 34%. So that makes like about like 5 point some kilograms of like dough, right? And then so that's the minimum batch that you can do. And so that's great, right? Like that gives you the flexibility. That gives you flexibility. The power of flexibility is great. And so you can make small batches like different types of noodles, right? And then so you can, well, respond to like kind of unique requests of like your local customers, wanting like particular types of noodles, right? They're difficult to make in mass production noodle factory, and so it's yeah. So that's what's good about this machine. Like it's like small, was it like flexibility that allows you to swing between dining in, retail, delivery, and the other types of business that you can do with the ramen, right? So what we are doing right now is like it's combining process. So like first, like what we did was just making rough sheet of dough, right? Making rough sheet of dough, which is still fragile. It's very weak. Um, but we by like separating it into two sheets and then combining them like through the roller, right? Then that makes them firm. That makes them strong. And in terms of noodle texture, that's gonna be like very firm, and the ramen like it's not too hard, but like kind of like crunchy, like chewy. So this process makes that kind of texture, and we usually do this process like combining process like twice, and so like applying very right amount of pressure into the dough to sort of like kind of activate the like gluten inside dough, right? And then like for this noodle to have you know certain certain like strength, right? Certain strength, like something like so. It's basically like all about like when customers bite into your noodles, they bite into the noodles, and so we're working towards that moment, right? When like customers finding the noodles and the kind of sensation that they feel like under their teeth, right? And yeah, so these two, well, like one time or like twice, that we do this combined process, and so that makes this noodle texture possible. So, but in this particular dough, like we do this combined process twice. And after that, right, so you may be able to notice that, like, we start dusting it, right? So from this point on, right, we don't want the dough to stick together. So we want to start dusting, right, to keep it from sticking, keep the dough from sticking. And after that, right, after this process, like combining process, all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness. So the thickness is determined by the roller gap, right? Thickness determines the roller gap, and so that determines the like kind of like part of the size, right? Part of the noodle size, and and if you're making flat noodle, then we can use the bigger cutter, like a wider cutter, and then cut it like kind of well, kind of flatten, like make the flat noodles. Um, and then or you can use the kind of like small size cutter and then to make like kind of square shaped noodles but like kind of small size, and this shape, right, this shape and the noodle size affects the noodle texture, final noodle texture, dramatically. So you need to think about the shape, right, shape the noodles like kind of well kind of cross section of the final noodles, to see, like if we are like making the noodles into the shape, kind of shape like we want, right? Kind of shape that we want. That sort of like determines the like final noodle texture. So it's very important. And we have to understand that, like, because like dough is, well, like a better words, like, alive, right? It was alive, like, well, it's not really alive, but like it's moving. I mean, it's not really moving, but like, um, so once it's like pass through this roller gap, right? The actual dough um, expands, right? Bounces back. Right now it's like rolling sheeting like 1.5 millimeter in roller gap, but like the actual thickness of dough is bigger, always bigger, because it's, at the moment like it gets out like the roller gap, it bounces back, right? So it's always bigger. So like before you cut, before you like start cutting it, you should measure it. You should measure the thickness. You should measure the thickness, right? And then, so it's like it was 1.5 millimeter, like roll gap, right? But its actual thickness is 2.2, 2.3-ish millimeter. So there's a big difference, like that's like almost like 0.8 millimeter difference. And if we, believe that it's like it's a 1.5 millimeter, right? And then, set the roller gap accordingly, and then cut it, and then like, we get the final thickness like all screwed up, and then that's really bad for the noodle texture, final noodle texture. So um, if you keep doing that, like if you repeat it, like if you have done it like many times, then you probably don't have to measure it. But like if you're making, for example, like this noodle, like this recipe, like for the first time, you should measure it. You should measure the actual thickness. And again, like that's the kind of cutter we use, sweet air cutter, and that's like a paper shredder, right? Paper shredder, and then so it splits the dough sheet into noodle strands, and this cutter. So you saw that like all these groups, like each group, like it's fixed in size, and number 20 means like that's 1.5 millimeter in width. So each group is 1.5 millimeter in width. So each of the noodle strands that are coming out is 1.5 millimeter in width. But that again, like thickness is determined by the roller gap. And so the noodles coming out, right? And then you can actually also control the serving size as well. Serving size. You can make it longer to have like bigger serving size. You can make it shorter to have smaller serving size. And of course, like you have as a customer, right? You may have like family, right? And then like dad eats a lot, so like he wants to have like a bigger serving size. Like kids, right? They have kids, and like they don't eat much, right? So like they want to have like kind of kid meal, kind of a small serving size, to make it shorter, right? So it's very easy to do that. Like just touch the knob, like just make it shorter, make it longer. It's very easy to do. And of course, like you can also like make them curly. Yeah, there's a part that you can put them back in the cutter to make them curly. And we cover, well, we show how you get, well, we show you guys how to do it like in a previous class, like actually last week. So if you're interested in how you can make curly noodles, please check our class we did on last week. So it's very easy to do, and in small batches, like it's which is like really important, because like again, like that gives you the power of flexibility in this business. So it's very important, like to that gives like ability to like to be able to like respond um, to the flexibility, right? So it's very important. So that was quick, right? Like so, we only made like bunch of noodles that are ready to go, right? And then um, so as we sort of like covered in the previous class, like we did a like micro noodle factory business. We can actually prepare all this dough that are actually ready to cut, right? And this is like kind of chili powder, like kneaded dough, right? And it has like kind of smell like color, orange, and kind of like good flavor of like chili in them. Like this is like whole wheat needed in them, whole wheat needed in them, like for customers like who are health conscious. This is very good dough. And this is something else like like I didn't get the information on. But like they're the same. But like and then again like you can make like make them like different hydration ratio for different noodle texture. A lot of stuff like I mean we a lot of stuff like I talked about in this class. So we have them in the books. Yeah, like these are books like we use in our real ramen classes. So for those of you who are interested, like more like knowing more about these stuff, right? You can check them in our website, on our website, and it's like a management side of things, like business side of things, and this is like kind of like technical side, like ramen soup. So these two books are dedicated for ramen soup. These two whole books. And we have like book for like ramen noodles and everything. So if you're interested in this subject, please check them on our website. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope to see you back in the next class. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye bye.